Hello, everyone. Thank you all so very much for coming. My name is Meira Blaustein. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Woodstock Film Festival, now in its 23rd year. It's so nice to be here at the beautiful White Feather Farm. Sarah Johnson, thank you so much. She is the owner of this whole property, and Sarah Johnson, White Feather Farm, and the Lausanne Foundation are big supporters of the Woodstock Film Festival. They support our filmmakers residency incubator that takes place every year now in another location that's part of White Feather Farm, and hosts our panels every year and so much more. So thank you, Sarah. The Woodstock Film Festival is a not-for-profit 501c3 organization. I have to say it each time because a 501c3 organization needs support from individuals, from foundations, from companies. I want to thank Gigantic Pictures. I want to thank Nova Foundation. They underwrite our youth film lab every year. Now it's entering its 6th year. So thank you very much to the Nova Foundation and Peter Buffett. And to all the individuals who support us and each and every audience member. Without you, there wouldn't be a film festival, and filmmakers will not want to come here because who are they going to show their films to? So thank you all so very much for attending this and every event at the festival. I hope to see you also tomorrow because we have panels here as well as films all over Woodstock and Saugerties and Rosendale and events in Kingston, so please join us. So we've had panels here all day long. This is the last panel. It may be the best. Maybe. You guys will decide if this is going to be the best. But to talk to our honoree, Ethan Hawke, who we're honoring this year with our Maverick Award, I would like to invite John Sloss. He is an entertainment lawyer and a producer and probably one of the most sought after and powerhouse kind of producers, at least in the East Coast area, if not the country. John Sloss, can you come up here? John has worked with Ethan Hawke for many, many years, over so many projects. And Ethan, come and join John, and they will have a conversation. Thank you all.
If there's no seating, y'all are welcome to sit on the stairs. There will be nobody coming down.
Let me tell you, let me correct that. His influence is international. Plugging him in. Bravo!
Johnson, who just stood prematurely as I was about to credit her. So thank you for this beautiful place.
Thank you so much.
All right, pressure's on. I don't typically come off like a sycophant.
I'm excited.
But I have to say, in this case, I might. As you know, I have immense respect for you, not only because you are an inherent artist, but you take nothing for granted. You wake up every day and whatever you're doing, you do as hard as you can. And that's an awesome combination. So I just wanted to say that. Enough of that. And the other thing is that I saw Raymond and Ray, and I noticed in one of the early scenes you have your shirt off. And you were looking pretty darn fit.
Thanks, pal.
So I don't know if that came down from Rodrigo or whether you were just, you've been taking care of yourself or.
Should we be honest today? You want to be honest?
Yeah, why don't we be honest? Yeah.
The life of an actor is so humbling. And they're never done with you. I had to do a different movie that I had to have my shirt off, and the director was so profoundly disappointed. and I was extremely angry with his way he talked to me, and I called my, 23-year-old daughter to explain my pain, and she's like, "Ha! You don't know anything." And meaning, that the life of an actor, you're always being objectified. It's part of the job, you know, and you got to get very zen about, you know, remembering when I was 16, my mom gave me for my birthday Olivier's book on acting and his big speech about your body's your instrument and all this other stuff, and that it's very easy to play characters. It's much easier to come off heavier or unattractive than it is to come off attractive.
Believe
right?
me, I know that.
Yeah. And I'm going this to say that, to be honest with you, I just had such incredible shame about doing this scene that ended up being cut from a movie and everything like that because the director was so unhappy with my body. And I was so angry at this guy about, hey, if you want to go to the gym, go to the, you know, if you want, and you know, I mean, if abs are important, go hire somebody from the gym. If you want somebody to give a speech and play this character right, I can do that. And I said all the right things about self-respect and dignity and all this other stuff. And then I went home and dieted and went to the gym because I was so humiliated. And I'm sure that director is so irritated when he sees Raymond Ray. He's like, wait, the guy's in shape. What happened? And I was like, well, that's a very long-winded answer of saying that I do think that as a performer, well, now I'm going to keep going on this. This is such a boring topic, but I'm going to riff on it. Juliette Binoche, I was doing a movie with her, and she said to me on the first day of shooting, so you want to be a character actor now, huh? And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, you know, you're letting yourself go.
Really?
She said, and what you're doing is you're announcing to the world that you want to be a character actor. I'm like, and it was really interesting because I admired her so much. And if you look at her career, it's actually breathtaking. I mean, everybody like kind of knows who Juliette Binoche is and everything, but I studied her career one night after she said this to me, and I realized the longevity that she has had as a performer in the way that it's not just because she's beautiful, not just because she takes care of herself, she also is one of the most educated people about international cinema and knows who the up-and-coming young directors are, who are the directors to champion, who to support. She's unbelievable at reading material. Like we were working with Koreeda, who's this beautiful Japanese filmmaker, and her ability to break down text and what's good. And I realized that, wow, I'm working with Michael Jordan. I mean, this woman has it all, and she's not letting go of the rope in regards to taking care of herself physically. And so I kind of thought, well, I don't just want to be a character actor. And I'll give you the punchline. I hope she doesn't mind me saying this. We opened in True West. I was doing True West on Broadway. And the morning after it opened, she wrote, congratulations on the reviews. I saw the photos. There's a lot more work to do. She's very tough. I mean, she's funny, right? I mean, I know that she likes me and it's okay. But it did because, you know, I was turning 50 and I was like, well, do I still want to be an actor?
Yeah.
Because there's a part of the life of an actor that is superficial. And I can sit there and say this director, he's being superficial, and why don't you just go cast somebody from the gym? And I can say all that. But you have to admit there's a bit of showmanship to our job. And if you want to keep working, you know, then I took out my little Laurence Olivier book. I mean, this guy went to the gym to work on his calves because he saw the photo when he was playing Hamlet that his calves looked so... He's just like, the truth is it's distracting. My calves are distracting. They're not listening to the play because I have such lame calves. And so he spent like 1.5 years working on his calves. And it seems kind of dopey, but I get it. Too long of an answer?
No, it's too.
I set the bar high with the best. I said it was going to be the best Q&A, so I've got to really be honest here.
So if Juliette Binoche is like that, why doesn't she direct?
Well, there you just revealed a slight antipathy towards what a staggeringly beautiful profession acting is. And that one of the reasons why her career is as brilliant as it is because of the choices she makes.
Yeah.
You know? And she is a filmmaker. I mean, it's like there are certain players in any sport that go on to coach. And there's certain players that just want to play, and you can affect a winning team in a more powerful position by doing what you do best, right? You don't want to get promoted out of your level of excellence. And if I could work with Richard Linklater all the time, if I could work with, my happiest time of my life is, I always feel like when you have a really significant role in a film with a great filmmaker, it's like being a first mate on a ship or something. And I would so much rather be first mate on a really excellent ship than captain a ship that goes down. And I think part of my problem is, I'm restless and I like to work a lot. And the opportunities to work with phenomenal filmmakers are rare. And I think the job of an actor is to stay in shape mentally, spiritually, and physically so that when an opportunity presents itself, you're ready. When you get the script to First Reformed, you want to be in good shape. You want to, be doing good enough work that you get the offer. I mean, as a film fan, there's probably, if we're being generous, 10 movies a year you flat out love, right? That you're like, I love that movie. There's probably one of them, or maybe two of them, that might have a part that you're right for, and there's hundreds of brilliant performers. And so when I realized the math of that, I realized I had to try to generate my own work, or I was going to be miserable.
Right.
And that why you meet so many actors who are miserable is because we're only as good as our opportunity. And very often, there's a great Frances McDormand quote where she says that, I don't need a good director. I'm a good actor. I just need a good editor. Just put the best stuff in the movie. So often than not, I'll say, why didn't you use the take when I spilled the coffee all over me? And they're like, I thought that was an accident. I'm like, it was, but it was awesome. And really good directors know that.
Right.
Like a director like Linklater, he calls it moment hunting. We're hunting for some true moment. All this work of producing it, raising the money, scouting, locations, all that, the wardrobe, everything is oriented towards these moments when maybe magic will happen. And the camera loves magic. The camera loves an accident. They love when the subconscious is revealed. When it's not your idea or my idea or her idea, it's this thing that happened that's bigger than any of the one of us.
I mean, that's interesting. So you historically with Rick Linklater, you've done so much rehearsing because he does that.
Yeah.
Does that limit the possibility of accidents?
No, because that's like saying, it's like telling a professional athlete that if they practice the day before the game, they'll be tired.
Right.
They're a professional. They're supposed to be in really good shape. And discipline creates freedom. Limitations are gateways for the imagination. People with those movies with Julie Delpy, I love that people think we're improvising. So much work went into creating the feeling that we're improvising. Linklater would say these things like, that no dramatist in the history, any intelligent dramatist would never say this. He's like, how when you're in a real conversation, somebody says, remember that time at the Michigan game? And then somebody comes up with coffee and you never get back to the Michigan game, right? Like that. He's like, we got to have stuff like that happen. Because that creates the impression of non-drama. I remember I was doing a scene on Before Sunrise. You probably heard me tell this story because I love it, but where Julie's talking to me and I was doing all my actors studio workshop and really feeling things. And, I had my secret in my pocket and something she was saying was making me kind of tear up a little bit. And Rick said, cut. Are you okay? He goes, it looked like you were moved by something. I was like, yeah, I'm and he goes, yeah, you got to stop acting. He said, because if you act, then people will expect a plot. And I don't have a plot. And because that made me think that they're Russians are coming at dawn or something. And what we're going to try to do is capture life. And if we do that, they will accept life on its own terms. And so that's when acting is really exciting. I forget what that related to what we were saying before, but I know that.
No, but I mean, it's fascinating, and you've just unlocked the secret to what makes Rick so brilliant.
Well, yeah, and you get that in rehearsal. That's where I was going with that, is that he loves to work. And the other thing that you get with rehearsal is relaxation. Because I heard, I've done, I think, 9 movies with Rick, and one of our co-stars who's working on their first movie with them says, "When did we start shooting?" And I was like, "Oh, 3 days ago." And he was just like, "Wow, I'm usually so nervous before the first day of shooting, but these rehearsals have been so intense, I forgot to be." And because we had to act all the time,
right?
And it is interesting. I was doing a scene we were rehearsing. Sidney Lumet was also the same way, and in a very different way than Rick. But that's again he loved to rehearse. And I'll give you an example. Philip Seymour Hoffman had to do a scene, and we were rehearsing it, and it finished, and Sidney went, "Don't you think Andy should be crying in this scene?" And Phil was like, "Yeah. On the day, I'll let her rip." And Sidney goes, "What day?" "Well, when we're shooting. So we're not working now? I thought we were working now." And Phil was like, "Well, you're saying you want me to cry right now?" And Sidney was like, "Yeah." and Phil is so funny. Phil goes, "Did Pacino do this?" and Sidney was like, "Yes, he did." Phil was like, "Okay, all right, give me 10 minutes. Okay, take as long as you want. Come in." We do the scene again. Phil collapses in tears, and the snot's coming out, and he can't say that, and he's crying and crying, and he finishes, and Phil's like, "So is that what you mean?" And Sidney goes, "It's exactly what I mean, because if you're going to cry like that, you can't be driving." And Phil was like, "Oh, yeah, right." He goes, "So you're going to cry like that. That was amazing. And we've got to pull the car over before the scene starts." And you start realizing, this is the value of rehearsing, right? Is that if we would just been doing that scene on the day, Phil wouldn't have been able to cry like that because he'd be driving down the turnpike. And the scene was much more interesting. Now, she asks him a question, and he pulls over the car, sits it down, and then starts his monologue. And it was fantastic.
Wow.
And it comes out of rehearsal, and it's not like Phil is some novice who can't, he when called upon, that is his job, is to deal in emotional currency, and he could do it. That was
I had 15 questions in the meantime that you answered half of them, and
all right,
the other half are
sorry, I'll do better.
What was I going to ask you?
I don't know.
We were talking about Rick. I have a question. Okay, this is a trick question, but it triggered it when you did the first mate captain analogy.
Yeah.
So if you had 4 months and you had a choice between acting in a Rick Linklater film and directing Blaze, what would you choose?
Oh, that's really hard, because if you'd picked anything but Blaze, I would have said Richard Linklater. First of all, his ethos.
Is that true? Would you have said that instead of Chelsea Walls?
Yeah, definitely.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love
choice.
Rick. You have to stand behind everything you do, even when it's just a learning experience and it didn't go as perfectly as you wanted. But Blaze, for me, I called Rick before. It was kind of a doubling down on yourself moment. I don't know. I was like 46 years old or something, and I really wanted, before I died, to do. Growing up as a child of the 70s, you always heard about these renegade productions and people making art for art's sake. And we live in such a culture where everything is status and accumulation of wealth and greed. And Blaze Foley represented to me, I wanted to do every biopic you've ever seen in your life is about somebody who's famous, right? And I was like, wouldn't it be fun to do a biopic about somebody who's nobody's heard of? And it's going to star somebody nobody's heard of. It was kind of like in my brain, it was the giant fuck you to the celebration of the individual. You know that fame is this be all end all, and that the real life of an artist is constant indifference from the world. You know, that's really the thing. And I wanted to do a movie about it, and we had.
Can I just say one thing? Doing a biopic about someone no one's ever heard of is a great financing sell.
And it's going to star somebody nobody's heard of.
Never heard of. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, so the point is, it was really, my wife really knew I wanted to direct, and she was just like, look, this is full disclosure. Boyhood had just come out, and somebody asked me if I would do an ad, you know, like one of these, like for something. I'd never done anything like that, and it was a really lot of money for it.
Was it in Japan or something?
No, but you know, the world is changing, and I was really against it. And my wife was like, let's do it, and let's take the money and make a movie. Let's just make a movie. And you direct something. I'm like, well, it's not that much money. And she's like, so let's just, whatever it is, let's just do it. And for whatever reason, so that idea of Blaze started really small. And what John knows better than anybody, sometimes if you just start doing something, you find allies and you find friends, and it doesn't always happen, but we found allies and we found friends, and you know, one piece of bread turned into two pieces of bread, turned into something for the sandwich, and it grew in the telling. And Rick was absolutely essential. I called him and said, you know, I really want to just go low to the ground and make a movie, you know, just for me. But just for me, I want to do it with my friends and about something I really care about. And he said, okay, but you have to pretend like every morning wake up and say, I'm 22. And you got to help carry the film canisters. So just make a mental note, carry the film canisters, get out of the mindset of how come I don't have a crane? How come I don't have a better camera? How come I don't have more extras? How come I don't, and go, I can't believe anybody showed up to help me. Right? And if you get in that mindset, that 22-year-old's mindset of just simple gratitude for everything you have, good things will come. So when you ask that question, that movie was special to me because it felt like, it was the first time I felt qualified to be a director. Like I'd put in 25 years of acting, and so when Alia Shawkat is doing something really beautiful and amazing, and she needs help with the scene, I felt qualified to give it. I wanted Charlie Sexton, I wanted musicians to play actors, and I felt qualified. When I was younger in Chelsea Walls, you have this slight enfant terrible thing happening, which is like you're a little bit of a poser, you know, in your own head. Like, am I pretending to be a film director, or am I actually a film director? And on that one, I felt in charge of it, not in the arrogant sense, but like I knew these waters. You know, I know how to get from here to there, and that was the first time. I'd experienced it in the theater before, but I'd never experienced it with a camera. So, but put simply, if I did have to answer, I would go with Rick.
There we go.
Now that I got it out of my system, yeah, I'd rather make another Richard Linklater movie. Do I get to be the lead?
Yeah.
Okay. If I get to be,
Naturally.
yeah.
So let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah.
In an interview.
Let's go back.
It's my what's his name? James Lipton. This is
Yeah,
my
there you
James
go.
Lipton moment. So what was the initiating incident for you as a creator in your life? What put you on this path?
There's never one moment. There's like a series of moments that start to feel like one thing. But I did a scene in Dead Poets Society where I looked up to Peter Weir so much. I was 18 years old. He had done Witness and Gallipoli and Year of Living Dangerously, and he was a grown-up. You know, he was a mature artist, and he was very humble, and he would talk about really openly about what it takes to be a popular artist, meaning that I am an artist, but I am also working to make other people money. And I understand that because he also was a sculptor. and he did his own sculpting at home, and he would talk about how different they were, that we have a job here to do. We're professionals in this environment, but he attacked everything like a craftsman. Much as it was a long time before I worked with somebody else like him, but Rick and Sidney Lumet fit in this vein of a mastery of the profession. And there was this new camera, new device called the Steadicam that nobody had ever seen before. Even John Seal was a cinematographer. Peter, they were, they'd made lots of movies. And this new thing called the Steadicam, which is, we now know it like lets the camera float around. But it had never been used before. And I was watching them play with this thing. And it was a scene where I'm supposed to improvise a poem in front of a class. And Robin Williams writes on the wall, "I sound my barbaric yawp over the rooftops of the world. Uncle Walt again." It's a Walt Whitman quote. And so we had to do the whole scene in one take, which is challenging for the director particularly because they know they're not going to be able to edit it. And so they really want it to be good. And so we rehearsed it a lot. And Robin Williams was, as you all know, is just a force of nature. And to be on a set with his creativity and getting him to stop improvising, if you're trying to do a scene in one take, is really challenging. And getting somebody like me to improvise, is challenging. I was 18 and nervous and scared. And I could use that nerve. My character was supposed to be nervous, so I didn't. It's harder if you're nervous and you have to pretend to be confident, but if you could just use the nervousness. But when that scene was over, it was like being a drug addict.
Really?
The high was so incredible. I remember we broke for lunch, and I was just like up there. I couldn't even get down in my body. The feeling of improvising with him in front of so many talented craftspeople. The camera operator is first rate, the props guy, the first AD, and they were all so proud of me. Yeah. And I felt that. And no sooner do you wake up the next morning and you're like, when do I get to do that again?
Right.
And then you just chase it and you read scripts for 30 years going, could that happen? Could it happen? In the back of your mind, you're not logically thinking it, but you're thinking like, could that magic happen again? Like, how can I chase that Dionysus flame?
Right. So that's a big moment for you in your creation as an artist. And then I think the first time I encountered you is we were screening Dazed and Confused at Universal, and Ben Stiller was screening Reality Bites. Yeah. It was like this competition that was going on.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I felt at that time you were transforming from an actor into a cultural object that people were judging or something, just because you represented a certain type of human. And I don't know if we ever had this conversation, but that I'm sure was not a fun experience to have people look outside your acting and
yeah, I would go out like that's in those moments. I would kiss a girl in a bar. I was 24 and, be on the cover of the New York Post, Gen X hunk making out. And like, I didn't have a name. I was just Gen X guy. And labels, any kind of label, any self-aware human being is gonna react violently to, because you don't see yourself as, a label. You see yourself as an individual. As you grow older, you start to realize that we aren't independent, that we are interdependent with other beings all the time, and that an actor is only as good as their audience. And I start to realize that was good for me. Like, that was actually good.
Oh, really?
I would have never said that 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But I realized having anybody notice you at all is like awesome, if you want to be a performer. And it was true. It was like the creator of Slacker and the Gen X poster boy were making a movie before Sunrise, and people wanted it to be this Gen X movie, and instead we tried to make something we were trying to make a throwback Eric Romer film. We weren't trying to be a statement about Gen X at all. But I thought Dazed and Confused was a masterpiece. I was blown away by it. And that is one of the hard things about living a long life inside this profession is, I'm sure you remember, Dazed and Confused did not perform well at the box office. Yeah. And everybody told me not to work with him.
Is that true?
Oh, yeah. Everybody's like, yeah, well, he had his at-bat with Hollywood and he struck out. And I'm like, Dazed and Confused is a strikeout? Like, you guys are morons. And having, if there's one thing I'm really grateful for, it is having some inner barometer of knowing that because somebody's ad campaign failed, it doesn't mean an art piece was, these words like failed and success, and that experience of just embracing our generation like that and making Before Sunrise, I'm really, obviously happy I did.
I mean, obviously, to trust your inherent sense of the quality of something you're looking at rather than judging it from some sort of, commercial cultural perspective is.
And it's harder to do. I mean, we all know it's super hard to hear your own voice. Sometimes haven't you had that experience where you see a movie and you really had a good time, and then you walk out with your family and they all hated it. By the time you get home, you hated it too. And it's really hard. And agents and studio people are the same thing. You like that? That one was America rejected it. I'm not so sure.
Yeah. So that I mean, to me, that's a natural segue to talking about Last Movie Stars, because I got involved with it well into it, but you got a call from the family of John Woodward and Paul Newman, and you must have seen in that the idea of how to examine how to live in public, how to basically be an artist, how to be a celebrity, how to do good, and how to be true to your,
I guess
your muse.
Before I answer that, I really need to publicly say nobody believed in this documentary like the person to my right. His counsel about it artistically and business-wise, from it being a 5-hour tone poem about Paul and Joanne, he believed in it, helped advise me about how to carve it up, how to create something, and where it should be. And so I need to lead with saying what a great partner you were on that, and I thank you for that.
All right, let's go to questions from the audience.
No, but to answer your question,
Why?
I saw when I arrived in New York. So after Dead Poets Society came out, I dropped out of college and I moved to New York, and Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward were there, looming large. It's like 1988. And they were this North Star of how admirable the profession could be. These are two white people who were born with a lot, and they did a lot with it. They tried their best to be part of the solution. They made being a good person look sexy and having fun. They had a good time. They weren't like self-lacerating. They put their money where their mouth was over and over again for their community. And they did good work over a long period of time. And so when I remember I'd go to some Williamstown Theater Festival play, and they would be there in the audience supporting this little, a play being done in a room just like this. And they would be there championing it, giving their money, giving their notes to how the play could be better. And they were so humble that it let you know that it was possible to survive a lifetime. And also the love element, to see two people who were in love with each other in their 70s, who'd been together for a really long time. It was moving. And she was this kind of the actor's actor. She wasn't a celebrity the way that he was, but the fact that he loved her made you think, oh, he must really love actors and acting and people who aren't. He understands what it's like not to be famous. And if she loved him, it must be okay to be a big shot. He's probably maybe not all big shots are phonies, like there was something. So when they called me, I really felt like Maya's generation, my oldest daughter, like do they have anybody like that? Like to just look up to, who isn't gonna look down at them or embarrass themselves so I felt like I wanted to give the world the feeling I had when I was 20, 21, and I could see them across the room and be like, wow, it can be done. You can be decent and good at what you do.
I mean, I think just anecdotally, sorry, I think, please.
Yeah.
And I mean, look here's the sycophant part. Not only do I see, my own observation is that all these elements are there in you, and you've tried to balance them. And when you first sent me this, I thought, oh, is Ethan trying to perfect his work-life, art commercial balance by looking at this group of people? But you really were the right person to do it. And
well, I called Rick and I was like, this is going to be a lot of work. And Rick's like, yep, but the universe gave it to you. I'm like, you think I should do it? He's like, I think you're the right person. He's like, I know you really well, and I think you're the person who's supposed to do this. And then I thought like, oh, I don't know. I didn't want to fail them or anything, but I did think that at their core, they were actors. Like, they were other things. But I think the thing that sustained them was a love of craft and a love of storytelling. And it carries you through the ups and downs if you actually love the doing of it. The results can go up and down if the doing of it is really fun and you enjoy it. And I thought that I could communicate that.
I don't think there's any doubt you
thanks.
did. And you, I mean, just anecdotally, I think you made them relevant to a generation that didn't necessarily even know who they are. I mean, I don't know if you've heard a lot of that.
I've heard it from a lot of young people. It makes me feel amazing. So many people think Paul Newman is a guy who makes salad dressing. I mean, they really have. They have no idea. No idea. And you're like, well, it's actually important that you understand when you pass by that salad dressing on the wall. Like, it's important to understand that. And they're giving away more money a year now than they ever have been. I mean, it's what they built goes on, and I think what they built as artists goes on inside Martin Scorsese and all those relationships. That you really realize, and it's why I love these film festivals, and why I think these film festivals are so essential. Is it's the only part of our community, the filmmaking community, that isn't led by commerce. Every other thing, we as filmmakers are judged by how much money we make. And you go to the Woodstock Film Festival, you go to Telluride, you go to Sundance, you go to the Seattle Film Festival, you go to this one, and it's the only place where movies are seen as a work of art. And you can go, I liked it, I didn't like it. It's like, and I love seeing things before they come out or after, in a retrospective. And you get to see it with an audience. And it's a reminder that it's not just commerce, that we're not just selling beer or chips or whatever it is that comes in between. It's not a unit of sale, right? And without these things, these festivals are so vital to our community. And where I'm going with that is that I couldn't tell their story without telling the story of the whole generation. You can't understand who Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward are if you don't know who Sidney Poitier is. If you don't know who Kazan is, if you don't know who Tennessee Williams is, you don't even understand, like, naturalism as an acting exercise started in a room in 42nd Street in the early 50s. Like, it used to be something else. And everybody's now imitating something, and these kids don't even know that they're imitating something. And if it's going to keep changing and keep growing, you kind of have to start to see yourself as part of a continuum of generations telling stories, weaving stories, talking to each other. And so that's what I loved, is when you start in the 50s, you see everything that led up to them.
Right.
And when you end in the 90s, you're seeing like, oh, right, his last movie was a Pixar movie, listening to Scorsese talk about the influence, like how Paul and Joanne had an impact on him and how he has had an impact on countless others. And you feel yourself as part of an intergenerational dialogue. And that was really, really fun, and learning that.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to catch Last Movie Stars, it is an epic in every term sense of the word. And that context was essential.
Was
I
essential.
think, to
And that's
telling
why,
that
because
story.
I was under a lot of pressure to make it as short as possible, but John believed in it. You know, I sent John 5 hours saying, you know, how do I get 3 hours out of this? And he was like, I think you should add an hour and find it like we were just talking about it. You know, I mean, if people can watch 10 hours of 8 years of Jordan's career, you know, can't we watch, you know, 6 hours of two people's 50-year career? Like, I should be able to get into the nuance of it. I love The Last Dance. I mean, like, so it was, but the way to really know them is to know their generation.
Yeah, and I mean, I sell nonfiction series, among other things, for a living, and the conventional wisdom is you don't do anything over 3 or 4 episodes. And this is really a testament to the effectiveness of this, that this was as long as it needed to be to tell this entire story, and nobody doubted it. When we showed it to the buyers, they didn't doubt it, and the audience didn't doubt it.
That was awesome. I doubted it.
You doubted it.
I doubted it. I doubted
Yeah,
it. I needed to be talked into it.
Okay, so here's a big question. You act, you write, you direct, you write books, you create graphic novels. Who knows what else you do? When you wake up in the morning, how do you decide how to parcel your creative time?
It's super hard. I mean, that's the thing that, it was really nice what you said when we first sat down. And when I was younger, I would wake up in the morning and I really did feel that any day where I went to bed and didn't create something was a waste. I felt this scratchy thing inside me, like, I mean, it was okay if it was a watercolor or a song or starting the theater company or doing it, but I had an itch, like an itchy feeling all the time. And the only thing that satiated it was trying to engage with other people to express ourselves. And the problem is now is I really want a job. Like, I really want, it's hard to keep having to make yourself up. Like, I envy Stenetic, you know, like the name of John's like to have a company and a place to go. And like,
We got a desk for you.
yeah, I just, the feeling that I don't know what I'm doing in May, you know, it was fun.
It's not liberating.
It was fun when I was 22 and have 4 kids and a ton of bills, and you're like, right, I hope this goes well. And it's also probably exacerbated by email, and there's a general awareness of all the things you're not doing. You know, that all the scripts I haven't read and the people I haven't gotten back to, and I really like people. You know, I want to engage. I don't like disengaging. But it does get overwhelming, and it's my favorite thing about being on stage. Like, when there's an audience and the lights go down and people paid like a lot of money to see a show, and they, like, some of them drove in from Jersey and some of them, you know, did this, and you listen to them over the monitor, and they're getting their, you know, playbills and stuff. And they say like 5 minutes to curtain, and you know that for 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is, all I have to do is act. And I just have to do that one thing really well. For a minute, like, I'm not going to help my kids with their homework. I'm not going to get back to the pediatrician. I'm not going to get back to you. I'm not going to read a script. I'm not going to fail a friend. I'm not going to, like, all I have to do right now is not fail these people out there and express to them everything I learned about this Sam Shepard play or whatever it is, you know? And I just find it so relaxing that I would love to be on stage my whole life.
There we go. Can we talk for a minute about Boyhood?
Yeah.
So
It was we worked on this for a long time, so.
Yeah, and I went in with Rick to pitch it to IFC, this corporation that ended up funding it. I mean, the idea that a corporation would finance something they can't begin to realize a return on for 12 years is just madness.
It's mind-boggling. The guy, Jonathan Steering, was like, I'll be fired by then. You know?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So I don't think I've ever asked you this question. So Rick must have called you up and said, what did he say?
Yeah, it's one of the proudest moments of my life. I don't know this to be true, but I know I was one of the first people he ever talked to about this idea.
I guarantee you were the first person.
And it started a little different, the idea, but it's so beautiful. He came to me when Levon was born. My son was born. He came to visit the baby, and we went out. It was like, I think the Super Bowl was on at some diner in the city in the background, and it's like it's pathetic. I think it was Tom Brady's first Super Bowl. That's how long that guy's been playing. But anyway, he had this idea, of Tolstoy. He was talking about Tolstoy's book, Boyhood, Something in Youth. It's like a collection of essays, but we're talking about the basic coming-of-age film and how they're all kind of alive because they act like we all grow up in one day. Like even the greatest 400 blows or something, this one thing happened and I became a man, or I became a woman, or I became myself. And he was like, it's just so fake, that this whole idea of a coming-of-age film is fake. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could do something that was more like literature? Like, you can't do literature on film because time, you need to get an actor. He's like, but what if we took first grade through 12th grade and we use that as the architecture for a film? Like, instead of a plot, it's just like first grade, it starts around the time your first memories start, around first grade, and it ends when you graduate high school. And he's like, wouldn't that be great? And I remember, I just thought, yes, that's a great idea. And when I think back on it, I think, why did I say that? That was such a crazy idea. Because you have to understand that as we dug deeper into the idea, you realize that it's actually illegal. You can't sign a contract for more than 7 years. So the whole thing is just was built on love and trust. It's just a handshake deal. It's like, you're going to be there at year 8? Are you going to be nice to me? I mean, it was a kind of wonderful thing with the kid. That Eller Coltrane, the lead of it, he didn't have to come the next year.
No, he could have come after 6 years and said, "Oh, by the way, I'd like $1 million
I'd like $1 million.
Yeah.
And it was one of those projects that when we started, it really did have the feeling of helping a friend paint a mural on their kid's wall, something. It was just like, hey, this will be kind of fun. And even the crew was a little sketchy, it was kind of put together. And even the idea that we'll be done with this in around 12, 13 years, it just seems so far away, right? And as the years accumulated, it started to be this thing I look forward to so much.
Did you ever look at, Rick sent me and Jonathan Sering a cut after 6 years, and we looked at it and we're like, we are so screwed. Like, what is this? And then, I don't know if did you ever see it?
I saw it every year.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
And then after the last year, Rick calls, he goes, I gotta say, I think we got something really special here. And
I remember he sent the first cut of the whole thing to me, and I was at my house and I just wept. I've never seen anything like it. And I was so proud of him. It was mind-blowing. And I didn't know that anybody else in the world would think that.
Yeah.
I thought, we made a really wonderful movie called Waking Life, which is animated and it's all about dreams. And I think it's brilliant.
Yes.
But I thought it would have a life like Waking Life. Like, well, it'll have some kind of cult status. Somebody will come up to me at the Lithuanian Film Festival in 2030 and say, I saw it. And I'll be like, you did? What'd you think? I didn't, it's not like I thought, oh, wow, Rick's gonna get nominated for awards and stuff. I didn't think that, but I thought this overwhelming pride of watching a friend's ethos manifest in a way that it's just a unique voice. It's like when Miles Davis plays a trumpet, it doesn't sound like somebody else. Where there's certain filmmakers, it's a Richard Linklater film. Nobody else would find this interesting. And it was, for those people that make movies or write or work on it, one thing that was, so every year he would send me, I guess the first time I saw anything was the first 3 years he stitched them together, and then 4 years and 5 years and 6 years. And it did get better and better and better. I mean, but one of the things that's amazing for him is every year that he would add the next year onto it, he would recut the first few years. And so it was like coats of paint, you know, and you realize how time is a great ally. We're all under such pressure to ourselves to deliver this poem or this finished work or this thing. He got to sand that in a way he'd never had with the film, of just sitting on it, working on it, meditating on it, and letting that affect his shooting the next year and what he learned as a person. And it's a Herculean exercise in patience, that movie. You know, to really make a short film every year for 12 years and then try to spin it into one work of art. I'm so proud to be a part of it, and it was such a unique endeavor.
And you know, when we screened the finished film, we at the IFC Center, a bunch of I don't think you were there because you had probably seen it at your house, but I saw it with Jonathan Sarian and all the people who were left at IFC, and it evoked all those emotions and another one, which was relief that
I'm
was
sure.
going to be able to get this corporation their money back.
I'm sure. I have to say, like, I had one of the best moments. You know, it's a different kind, but you know, like the barbaric yawp story I told of Dead Poets Society. There was one on that movie, but it was different because the movie became a real hit, right? And IFC called us up and said, like, they're moving Planet of the Apes out of the ArcLight in LA. Like, this big movie theater was playing Planet of the Apes, and like they're going to put Boyhood in this big screening room.
Cinerama
The
Dome?
Cinerama, you know, it's gone now,
yeah.
but it was in the Cinerama Dome, which was this huge thing that the week before had been selling out Planet of the Apes, and we did a Q&A there. This is what I was so proud of Linklater. We did a Q&A there. I mean, you know, I'm talking, I don't know how big it is, but it felt like 2,000 people or something. It's a really big movie theater. Yeah. And you see this movie that's just about human beings growing up, failing each other, succeeding, all the stuff of real life. And we did this, somebody raises their hand and said, hey, Ethan, I noticed in the middle of the movie there's a scene where you're skipping a rock, and it got like, I don't know, a lot of skips. And they said, was that CG? And I was like, this is so incredible. I had to say to the person, I said, you know, yesterday there were talking apes, like firing machine guns at war with mankind here. And Richard Linklater has managed to make you interested in rock skipping. And rock skipping is awesome. And it really happens. Do you know, our lives are really awesome. Like getting up in the morning is a miracle, you know, and Rick bends your eye to that. Growing up, getting older is a miracle. It is a special effect. You know, it is magic. You know, this is one of my favorite lines in that movie is the kid says, you know, are elves real? So my son says to me, and this is something my son really said to me, and he hates that I used it in the movie, but, you know, that's welcome to having an artist as a father. But I said, well, you know, imagine if I told you that there was a mammal that lived underwater that was so big you could drive a Volkswagen through its heart, and it communicated by singing songs, and that creature was called a whale. That's real. You know, and he went, and the kid goes, but no elves? You know, and I feel like that's how we are about our real lives. You know, it's like, well, can I be in Planet of the Apes? And what Boyhood did for that brief moment at the Cinerama Dome is make it feel like graduating high school is awesome. You know, like your son did it. Oh, they didn't die. They didn't, you know, like, oh, thank God. And making the average things, they're not average. You know, they're just things we take for granted. Anyway, that's the great joy of that movie.
I think we have some time for some questions, probably for Ethan from the audience. So here we go. Yes, you, sir.
2 weeks? Was the script all set when you got together? how did you fit it in?
It was amazing that it was extremely difficult from a production standpoint. Patricia was on a big hit TV show. She would have limited hiatuses. Part of my handshake deal with Rick at that diner, when my son was born, where he first told me this, is we just shook hands and I said, listen, I will do everything humanly possible to make myself available. You know, and by that I mean I will call you and warn you whenever I take a job, you know, so he could plan. And if there's a way in the world that I can get to Austin to do this thing, because that was his big fear with Patricia and I, is like everybody else he could coordinate, everybody lived in Austin, but we didn't. And so there would all be these, luckily, aside from the first couple years, Patricia and I were very rarely in a scene together. The parents were divorced, and so he could navigate how to shoot that we didn't have to be there at the same time, because each of us had a very, I mean, there were times where I would be doing a play and fly down after the Sunday matinee, shoot on Monday, fly back Tuesday morning to be on stage the next day, like to try to get a shot, you know. But no, it was never scripted beyond, I mean, this is why Linklater has a certain magic quality about him. Like, it was scripted in that the kid is going to go from being 6 to 18, right? Like, that much we knew. But he would call everybody through the year, and he had an outline. Like, I knew, like, 1 year we're going to go to a baseball game, 1 year this is going to happen. We had a very shared, our fathers are a lot alike. They're both in the insurance business. We both come from a divorced family. You know, our fathers are very similar men. And so we really wanted to do a portrait of our fathers with this character. And we both had the experience of watching our father change through divorce, through remarriage. And, you know, the years when your father's single and feels wild to you as a young person. And then the domestication that you think is perceived as happening to your father, where he, you know, gets a minivan and, you know, all these different things. So that was in the architecture, but just in a kind of dreamlike state. And each year, he would call us differently and say, well, hey, I talked to Eller, and Eller's really into Star Wars, the reboot of the series. Maybe you might want to watch that so we could work on those together. Or, you know, maybe I think you guys are going to go camping this year. And he would call, what do you think you would be talking about? And I would talk to him about when my dad and I would go camping and what would happen there. And so every year we would arrive with kind of a 3-page bullet outline. We're going to go see an Astros game. You're going to drive home. It's going to be a scene in a car where they talk about school. Then you're going to put them to bed, and you're going to wake up in the morning and going to drop them off at their mom's. Little short film, Weekend at Dad's. Okay. I'd arrive at the hotel. I'd sit with the kids, talk to them about their lives. Have you kissed anybody yet? What's going on with you? What kind of music do you like? And we'd get them talking, because they seemed to do a lot better when they were talking about things that really interested them. And they grew a lot of confidence. If we gave him a monologue about Pineapple Express, he did it really well. You know, he cared about that movie, right? And so that's kind of a fun. And then maybe the dad character hasn't seen it, and we could make a scene out of that. And kind of like a jazz musician or something, Rick knew the architecture, what you were supposed to feel. He didn't know the lyrics, or he didn't know the exact notes we were going to play, but he knew what key it was going to be in, you know, and he would guide the conversations there every year for 12 years. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so please wait for the mic. We're recording this.
Hi, Mr. Hawke. I was lucky enough to tell you a few months ago how much I love First Reform. And then about a month ago, my sister and I rewatched Maudie, which is just incredible. And so I want to ask you, without thinking too much about this, what is the most difficult film you've ever done, and what is the easiest, the most fun you've ever done? But don't think too hard about that.
The most difficult is pretty easy, I think. I remember there's one wrap party I ever went to that I felt absolutely exhausted. And it was before midnight. It's, for those that don't know, it's a trilogy of films. The first, we did them 9 years apart. Before Sunrise, I was in my mid-20s, and then early 30s, and then early 40s. And the first two films are both exercises in romantic projection. You know, they're people who meet and they star moony-eyed over each other, but they don't really know each other. And then the second one, they meet again, having not seen each other in 10 years, and the same feeling happens of, I think you're my person. And then we challenged ourselves a decade later to say, like, all right, we made two films about romantic projection. Can we make a third that is about romantic reality? And we really make a love story that doesn't have one lie in it. This was our challenge to ourselves, that there's not going to be one lie in it. And we're going to tell the truth about a couple who loves each other, who's been together for 10 years. And the challenge was actually extremely hard because the history of cinema, we just love kissing in the moonlight and they lived happily ever after, you know? And nobody lives happily ever after. There's no such thing. It's like a punchline that we're really telling our kids, you know, that there is no such thing. And so it was so difficult to write that movie and to have it be romantic and have it have love in it and have it have all the things that come with raising kids for 10 years, sleeping together for 10 years, gender roles, you know, and so the writing and performing of that movie broke my brain. It was extremely difficult, and I'm very proud of the movie. It's the hardest to watch of the three. It's a tougher movie, but for me, it really answers the first two, and I never felt good about leaving the world with these two things that were just about, wouldn't it be, you know, it's like that Beach Boys song, wouldn't it be nice, you know? Like, well, is it nice? I don't know. It felt like it wanted an answer. And the three of us all had different points of view. So, you know, the writing of it and we had to write it together and then we had to act it and shoot it together. So it wasn't like you wrote it together and then let the actors go do it. You know, Julie and I had to sit in a room and write it together and then act it out together. So that was extremely hard. And then what was your second question? The easiest. The most fun was definitely Blaze. I'm a music fan, and I had this, my wife was my producer, her best friend was one of our art directors, the DP was a friend of mine. The musicians, I've always had this theory, you know, as a person who's done different art forms, and you'll remember when I was younger, I used to get really criticized for it. And I just always instinctually felt these things are not so different, you guys. This idea that they're expressions. Why is everybody saying it's so radical that an actor would want to write? You know, I mean, look at the history of the arts. Actors have written forever. Why are you acting like this is a big deal? And I likewise, I felt, I would watch musicians and be like, they'd be amazing actors, you know? And so it was really fun to take two musicians I admired wildly and talk to them about acting. Because you know what's funny about that tabula rasa state, that beginner's mind? If you have a great artistic sensibility, but you're trying an art form you have no ego in, you know, these guys had no ego. They were big-time heavyweight artists, but they had no ego about acting. So they just gave themselves completely to it. And my next film was as an actor, was First Reformed. And I just tried to take that beginner's mind state right into it. I'm gonna do whatever Paul Schrader says. You know, I'm gonna put no ego on this. So the most fun, it's, you know, most people here haven't seen the movie, but it's a music movie and it's my country western opera. And if you ever get a chance, watch it because it's a lot of fun.
It's an extraordinary movie. I couldn't agree more. Yes.
You talked earlier, I saw the film, Ray and Raymond, and you talked earlier about improvisation. I thought one of the best lines or scenes in the movie was when the little boy says, "That was weird." Was that improvised?
It sure feels like it,
It
doesn't
does.
it? I'm not in that scene, and I don't know. But when he kind of goes, "Oh, it was weird," it seems so honest, doesn't it? It feels like it has to be improvised. It just, when I was talking earlier about the camera loves an accident, that felt like an accident to me. It was like, so, because that little kid watched all those scenes and he did think it was weird. If it wasn't, he did a great job, but it sure felt like, oh, wait, was he supposed to say that? Which I love that feeling.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. Speaking of music, Born to be Blue, the portrayal of Chet Baker. How did you go into this movie, and what did you take away from it?
I went into the movie as a giant jazz fan, and it was, John knows, you know, we tried to make a movie about Chet Baker when I was young. Linkletter and I and John, we tried to sell, I could amuse it for hours of how Rick just blew every meeting. We should have made this movie, but Rick would insist on being completely honest with every financier about how the movie was going to have no jazz in it and be really boring. And you know, like, he's like, I just don't want to trick anybody.
Yeah.
Trick them! Let's make it. It's going to be great.
It's like, so he would say this, he'd be in a meeting and someone would say, well, isn't it a problem that X? And he goes, yeah, could be.
Yeah, that could be a big problem. I remember one of my favorite moments of ever being his friend. I know this, I'm going to get back to jazz in a minute, but we're trying to raise money for that movie. We walked into some financier person and they said, you know, we're new here and we've taken over the company and we're really oriented towards, we really want to make important films. And Rick went, oh, geez, you won't like me. Because I definitely don't want to be important. So I don't even know where to go from here. And then it's part of why I love him. But we didn't get that movie made. And then 15 years later, Robert Boudreau came to me with a script about Chet Baker in his early 40s. Because Rick, we were trying to make it a la when Chet first became famous, which was in the early 20s. So I just outgrew it. I was 25 when we started working on it. So Rick fired me at 29 or something. I remember we were sitting somewhere and I said, well, we just got to get that Chet movie made. And he's like, I'm like, what does that mean? Your teeth are getting a little long. You're not as pretty as you used to be, you know? And I was like, no!
That is such a great script, too.
Oh, it was a great script. But so I got offered to play Chet Baker in his 40s after he'd lost his teeth. And I was like, oh, I'm going to make the sequel to a movie I never made. But I had worked hard on the script for the one that didn't get made, so I felt connected to him already. And what did I learn? I learned, you know, you learn so much as an actor. You know, one of the things, I don't know, big takeaways. I remember there was a story that didn't make the movie that I really tried to, we shot some part of it, but Chet Baker went up to Miles Davis, it's apparently a true story, and apologized for winning Trumpeter of the Year, you know, and he went up to Miles Davis and said, you know, I'm embarrassed, you know, to have won this prize and see you here. He goes, I was going to write you a letter. And Miles Davis apparently said, you got 150 letters to write before you get to me. You got to write Clifford Brown. You got to write, you ain't on the top 100. You know, all you are is white and pretty. And so it was like, you learn so much about America playing these parts. You know, that's true what Miles Davis said to him. You know, it's absolutely true. I don't know. I love getting to play these people. playing real people is really interesting. Chet Baker, John Brown, different. Yeah, thank you. And like you learn a lot. Maudie, you brought up Maudie. Like I bought 2 of her paintings. I fell so hard in love with her. They're just on my wall. I just love that movie too. That one was easy too, to answer your question, because Sally Hawkins is a card-carrying genius. She's like, I felt like this is what Daniel Day-Lewis must be like. The power of her imagination is so transformative. It's like you look in her eyes as a performer and you're there. I mean, everything is real to her. I mean, there's some actors' eyes you look into and you see the camera and you see the sides in their pocket and you feel their nervousness and you get nervous. Denzel, Sally Hawkins, Phil Hoffman, there's a handful of people that it's difficult to act badly in a scene with them. It's really difficult. They do so much of the work for you.
Yeah.
Ethan, thank you. Ethan, you just mentioned John Brown, and I want to say how much I loved your portrayal. I've been in the industry for 18 years as a studio executive, and it always comes to the point of talking about inclusivity. And growing up in New York, or just being in this room, we don't have to point to the color of our skin to say, I'm here because I want to hear about film and television and hear about your experiences. Why do you think in our industry, which is supposed to be about inclusivity, and when I see the roles that you've chosen, whether it's Training Day or playing John Burt, being in a multicultural cast, how do you make those choices to just say, this is what I want to do, when everyone seems to say that it's so hard?
It is so hard. I mean, I was 19 in New York, and I went up some steps to some, 99-seat house, and I think it was some room in NYU, and I saw John Leguizamo perform for the first time. The guy is gorgeous, he's hysterically funny, and he's brilliant, and he can act his ass off, right? And the amount of opportunities that have come to me throughout my life have not come to John. John has, everything he's earned 3 times, right? I was lucky enough to get to sit next to Denzel in this Monte Carlo for 4 months. And there were a lot of people, a lot of smart people that were really disappointed in him for playing a bad guy. They were really, and it's a weight I never had to carry. It doesn't take a genius to know you're not carrying that weight. And this country is tripping on itself over and over again about living up to its alleged ethos. And it's so hard for some people to hear. And my belief about it was really wonderful to get to play John Brown and really study that crisis moment in American history. But, guilt is a powerful emotion. People like to make this thing about white guilt. It's like as if it's like, I don't know, they don't take it very seriously, because guilt trips people up badly. Guilt creates denial. Guilt creates anger. Guilt is real. And until you forgive, until you accept that, we as a country keep tripping on that. It's a real problem, I think, about not why it's so important to teach and tell stories. They free us from the guilt. We're all born into, these dominoes were set up. I had an amazing experience with James McBride, who wrote Good Lord Bird. And he's one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And he called me up, we were getting ready for production. And he called me up and he said, hey, I got something really important I always meant to say. I'm on the phone, like walking through some field. And he's like, when you have racist characters, I want you to try to cast people you love. It's like, cast somebody you really like. because if they have horns in their head, right, then racism isn't real. He's like, the thing about these people back then is they might be racist, but they also like took care of their grandma's foot, and they cried when their dog died, and they loved their niece, and they're racist. You know, and if they have horns and they're evil, then somehow the pain that this racism is causing isn't real either. You know, it's so much more complex than that. So when you have somebody who's really bad, like, you know, we had these characters, some race, he's like, cast somebody you really love. And I called Steve Zahn, the most gorgeous people in the world. He's such a kind and good, I mean, his heart is pure gold. And I had to have him, you know, stand at I don't even want to say the word. You know, there's a slave rebellion that gets put down, a bunch of people are executed, and we put Steve in there watching it, you know, and it was part of trying to honor what McBride was talking about. You know, it's real. These issues of diversity are real. They're real in our industry. They're real in our storytelling. It's amazing to me. Paul Newman never worked for a female director, no less a female director of color, right? Joanne Woodward worked with one female director, herself, right? You know, that's that generation. Maudie is the first time in my life I was directed by a woman, you know? I mean, and it's not through not wanting to. I tried to do a movie with Agnieszka Holland, but it's real. And as much as everybody's talking about it, and that's nice, and it's strange that we live in these corners where in some corners it seems like that's all anybody's talking about, you know, but they're not talking about in other corners, and it's strange. And I don't quite understand what it's going to take for like a collective healing. You know, McBride really believes it's on. You know, he believes that good things are happening and that we've got to see them. We've got to see them and champion the good things that are happening, and not focus on every failure, but to focus on every triumph and build on it and create new heroes. You know, and so I don't know if I'm answering your question. It's a really big question, and it's a really real question. All right.
That seems like a perfect grace note on which to end. And this conversation is another gift from Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, no, it's a gift from you. I love being here with you, if you can't tell. I like talking about art. I love film festivals. Thank you for being here.